Welcome to the Cruise Lifestyle.
All right, thanks for joining us once again, Bruce. Welcome aboard again. We'll catch up with what's been happening in the news around cruising for the last week or so.
Awesome, yeah, it's been an exciting few days.
Yeah, look, I guess we'll start off in the positive frame of things. I mean, there's been a lot of mainstream media positive indications of cruise. I mean, I don't think. I was speaking with Joel Katz, and there's nothing official as yet, but certainly the groundswell of opinion seems to be sort of going into the positive territory of cruising restarting here.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've definitely seen some comments, particularly from New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet, or as I like to say, Perrottet. He's definitely very keen to restart all sectors of the economy, and you're definitely aware that cruise is being left behind. It was interesting, yesterday we published something that Greg Hunt had said in Parliament, in federal Parliament, about cruising, and clearly the health side is definitely a blockage there. Very measured, very, we've got to be so careful, blah, blah, blah. And compared to, it just defies logic that, we're opening up flights, and it is absolutely the case that from next Monday, the 1st of November, we will be able to fly from Australia to anywhere in the world and go on a cruise, but we can't get onto one in Australia. But yes, definitely some positive news from the point of view of what New South Wales Premier is saying. Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, she announced something positive, still very parochial in terms of cruises for Australian, for Queenslanders. Sorry about that noise in the background. But interestingly on that front, Coral Expeditions has today announced some Queensland itineraries for Queenslanders, and so
that's this year as well.
That's this year, yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so it's it's all positive, and clearly there's an appetite. Look, I think in very soon logic has to prevail, and there's got to be some announcement. Sure.
I mean, there's just a feel that we're getting close.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the feel I get, and certainly with the mainstream media. I mean, Channel 9 recently have said cruising's going to restart next year, and all that. I mean, I don't know what they're relying on for that sort of date, but I mean, I guess the feeling is there that we're
absolutely.
We're
now, having said that, this morning we've had the news that P&O and Princess have both deferred by another month. Now, the fact they've only gone for a month, they haven't cancelled everything. Perhaps that reflects that even if the decision was made today or announced today, it still takes months to get those ships down here, and I think that's just reflecting that reality. So let's hope it is today. You never know. By the time this goes to air, we might have some good news.
We would hope so. Hope so. But yeah, I mean, as you said, P&O have extended their pause till middle of February, and I think Princess with Coral Princess till middle of March.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's still. I mean, like you said, even if we get a decision today, it's going to take a few months to get ships here. And one thing that was mentioned to me today, like even you're talking your peripheral sort of things that support cruise, like growers and things like that.
Absolutely.
If a cruise ship needs 1,000 tomatoes, well, you've got to plant them and get them ready. So
that's right.
That's going to take a number of months in itself.
They need to be in the ground right now. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Look, I think that governments, think, well, the logistical supply chain, they will get that sorted out, and that is true. The cruise companies are very good at making magic happen, both on and offshore, and so being pragmatic, but definitely we just need a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Some sad news. Pandora, 26 years they've been going. They're quite an icon in the Asian river.
Absolutely.
Sort of cruising.
Yeah, look, Paul Strawn, the founder, a real visionary. It's not easy to get around rivers in Asia. They're some of them are great big rivers, but others, anyway, they've got this fleet of ships that are sort of specifically designed to navigate particular waterways and really experience the local culture, and as we know, a river cruise, the ideal way to see some of these destinations. But sadly, they've had this, double whammy or triple whammy of the pandemic But also on top of that, they did a really successful restart in Myanmar, where there's been this military coup, and so all of a sudden Myanmar was, it was one of the the hottest destinations in the world, and then all of a sudden, no one from the Western world wants to go there because of this perceived lack of safety. It's very unpredictable. There's a military junta leading the place, and so Pandaw, which has 17 ships, they've been laid up, and basically they just can't see a way that they can get them sailing in the next 12 months, and they just can't afford. They've held on this long, and it's so frustrating because even Australia is starting to open up, but to get that operation going again, they just can't do it, and so unfortunately, sadly, they've put the business into liquidation.
It's a shame because they were quite iconic.
Yeah, absolutely.
In that area, so
yeah.
And there's not necessarily a huge amount of competitors in that
totally.
space. I mean, there's a few, but.
And they would do some really interesting itineraries. I think it's the Hooghly River in India, places that other people, you've really got to invest to make a product work there, and they did it, and they were committed, but also very committed to the locals and to the good that travel and tourism can bring to these remote communities. Look, let's hope. I guess it means that there will be some assets available for someone to acquire from a receiver.
Yeah, or hopefully someone can sort of pick up the pieces and resurrect
totally.
what they had.
Yeah, yes. Very sad.
It is. Yeah. As I said, they were quite iconic in that area. Viking.
Yes.
Doing a Hawaiian Islands looks like a wonderful itinerary.
Absolutely. And look, this is such an interesting move, just because it's so opportunistic in that they've announced it a day after Hawaiian Airlines has announced the resumption of Sydney to Honolulu flights, and again with Australia reopening, so you can get there basically. And yes, the Hawaiian Islands is an interesting destination, and Norwegian has Norwegian Pride there, which has been able to operate around the Hawaiian Islands for many years because it's US flagged. Now, obviously, Viking ship is not US flagged, and so the itinerary does call at, I think it's a port in Mexico, Ensenada, to get that around those cabotage rules. But yes, the Hawaiian Islands, man, what a great destination for cruising. You get to see the whole destination, all the different, it's such a diverse, interesting place. But, US dollars, familiar culture, familiar, currency, all that sort of thing. So, surely we'll sell really well out of this market.
Well, yeah, I think so.
Markets.
Aloha. Yeah, and I guess with Viking's level of service and smaller ships and and that sort of, it's augurs well for a good little season for them.
Definitely, and look,
and that's this year as well. I think they're talking about it.
It is, yeah. I think it's in December. So amazing and brilliant, and let's hope that it goes really well, because I think that would be a really good product, going forward for Viking out of the Australian market.
So is it just one departure they've got, or they're doing a few?
I think it's two.
Okay.
I think it's around and back.
And leaving from
Honolulu.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So ideally, place for the flights and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anyone from Viking listening? We're open to having a look at that one.
Absolutely.
There's been a couple of really good announcements, I guess, last few weeks. I mean, we haven't caught up for a couple of weeks, but some great itineraries coming out from Royal, particularly with their round world cruise.
Yeah,
first time they've done that, and it's a huge itinerary.
It's incredible. I think it's 274 days, basically 9 months. Gigantic cruise, and will be absolutely fascinating to see how many they get booking the whole thing, because it's a jolly long time. And I can remember when, I think it was maybe Uncruise Adventures, a now defunct, not Uncruise, but the predecessor to it, a now defunct Canadian cruise line announced a 180-day itinerary, and at the time we thought, oh my gosh, 6 months at sea, how incredible, exploring the world. Well, this is 9 months.
Well, I know some of is it the Viking one that's 180 days?
Yeah,
There's a few of those around that mark. But...
Well, that's right. And so Viking, they actually had a bid, I think it was Orion, no, I'm not sure, right at the start of their pandemic. They had a ship, it was in Australian waters, and then it ended up in Bali, unable to disembark passengers because of the start of the pandemic, but that was going to set a Guinness World Record for the longest ocean cruise, world voyage. And unfortunately, they didn't get it because they had to disembark everyone eventually because of the pandemic, sadly. Anyway, this royal one, a very, I guess an inspirational itinerary all around the world, but it's divided into 4 sectors, which they're saying are sort of 2.5 months each. Or I think they say almost 3 months, but if you do the maths, 4 threes are 12, not 9. But yes, an absolutely incredible exploration of the globe, and I think it will be very popular. Little bit of controversy. They sort of had the timing of the announcement was supposed to be coordinated worldwide, and I think that some passengers got advised ahead of their travel agents locally, and we're assured that was just that never happens. A mere oversight, yes.
That never happens.
But yes, go and see your travel agent now, and they will definitely explain.
It's a good sized ship too. I mean, it's Serenade Seas, which is pretty much the same as Radiance, I think, that we've had down here. So,
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice sort of size ship to do that sort of itinerary in. So
Very exciting.
And P&O, another first, doing around Australia. They haven't done that before.
No,
and that's had some really good groundswell, I guess, on social media and things.
Definitely. And look, it's also, P&O's got to work out what its itineraries are going to be like, through the winter. It's always been a bit of a challenge because they've got ships here year round, and this is a brilliant idea. And as taking the ship around Australia also just supports all of those local ports. So, the local communities, the providores, it brings economic prosperity sort of wherever it goes, and so it's a really important.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I mean, Princess have done it for many years, doing it a couple of times a year and stuff. So it's interesting. I guess the P&O product attracts different sort of clientele.
Absolutely.
So it'll be an interesting one to see how that actually goes. It's not till 2023.
Correct.
But it's
very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Bit of a quirky story out of Dubai, the world's biggest floating nightclub, the legendary QE2.
Yes, so QE2, it's been in Dubai for a while, and plans on the drawing board. Anyway, this is the latest one because they wanted to do it as a hotel, and yes, look. Like anything that's floating on the water, it requires a lot of maintenance, and so you've got to make the dollars stack up. Anyway, this is the newest initiative, is to make it into a nightclub, and
a massive nightclub. Like, you can make a nightclub out of part of it, but like,
those QEII ships, they do have the big ballroom. They've certainly got the venues on board. I don't know about the rest of the accommodation.
What do you do with the rest of the space?
Yes, good question, and perhaps nothing. But, perhaps that's been the decision, rather than maintaining all of those rooms and servicing them, etc. Let's just make it into a venue, and an exciting place that you could head there for your 50th birthday.
Unfortunately, that's long past, but maybe we can aim for the next one.
39. Yeah.
There was another thing out of the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, building a tourist resort on an oil rig.
Yeah, this is fascinating, and I was talking about embracing your heritage. Look, clearly Saudi Arabia is definitely pivoting away from oil, and they've got these things. I guess an intriguing prospect. I find it interesting. I guess it's already there, but again, a lot to maintain. And don't they have land where they could build these things where it would be a little bit easier, because it's not a small country.
I mean, if you're looking for something unique, I guess that fits the bill. But
I think it's going to have hotels. I think it's going to have a roller coaster and all sorts of attractions on this thing, and boy, I mean, I'd love to see it. I don't know.
And also planning for cruise ships to call in and stuff.
So brilliant, short excursion and stay the night, and who knows?
Get yourself covered in
I'm sure
Middle East crude or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Going back to some cancellations, Tradewind Voyages cancelled their 22-23 season.
Yeah, in Australia. Yeah.
And not this year, they're talking next year.
Yeah, so this is the Golden Horizon, which is a beautiful ship, originally built for, who was it? I think Swan Hellenic. Anyway, it's Tradewind Voyages. It's the world's only sailing cruise ship of this size, and a really inspirational itinerary. I mean, can you imagine, sailing on a tall ship with all the mod cons? And so it really, and the plan was the owners, the charterers are British, and so they plan to do this sort of, two-pronged season, half the year here and half the year in the Northern Hemisphere. And in fact, they planned it and sold it very well out of Australia for the season at the end of 2020-21. That was cancelled, obviously, because of the pandemic.
Then, we're going to come down this year, I think.
And they
were
definitely keen as mustard to, and so everyone's bookings just got shifted forward a year. But again, the intransigence of the Australian government meant they just couldn't plan that properly. But now, they definitely will be able to operate here 22-23, but they've just decided they're shy of the Australian market and the regulation, and so they've cancelled. And they're going to deploy it, I guess, in markets where there's more certainty and more ability to make money. I can understand it. They're risk averse. Probably the repositioning voyage is a lower yield product or hard to sell because it's a long sector.
Yep.
And so probably their financiers are saying, look, we just, we love the Australian market, but we just can't make it stack up. So I think it's going to the Mediterranean, Caribbean, a real sad loss. Let's hope that we see it here in 23-24.
Yeah, look, it would be nice to see. I mean, we've never really had a ship quite like that's ever come here. So it will be interesting.
And it was going to be, it was going to be pretty much the maiden deployment was going to be in Australia for Australians. And so, what an iconic way to promote the country and all that sort of thing. But yes, another massive loss.
I think, once Australians cotton onto it too, it would have gone gangbusters.
Totally.
Look,
totally. Yeah, once you saw it here. Yeah. So very sad.
MSC had a bit of trouble a couple of years ago with the Opera, I think, was it?
Bit of a parking issue in Venice. Yes, sadly smashed into Uniworld Cruises River Countess, and they did pay all of the damages, etc. But Uniworld's owners pressed for compensation, not just for the damage that was done and the injuries and that sort of thing, but also for future earnings. They had to cancel a whole season of cruises out of Venice on the River Countess, and so long running, lots of legal argument. I think it was decided in a British court, but subject to Italian law, and it just meant that if they it was basically decided that under the Italian law, MSC argued that the law didn't provide for this type of damage, but unfortunately they lost, and so they'll just have to dig into their pockets even deeper. The side issue to that is that when this big cruise ship smashed into the little river ship, it sort of brought to the fore the whole controversy around big ships operating in the Giudecca Canal, Venice, and which has actually led to a ban. So, far-reaching ramifications, not just for those two companies, but also for the wider industry. Probably a good thing long-term for sustainability. There were lots and lots of ships traversing that canal, but, it's sad. I've been lucky enough to do it, and it's an amazing experience going along that canal, as you leave Venice, past all of those incredible sights.
So I've done it as well. I actually did it on MSC, but
really, yeah.
That was about 5-6 years ago now.
Right.
But,
anyway, an experience like climbing Uluru, an experience that future generations will not get to experience, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or fortunately.
Australia's Aurora Expeditions have been certified 100% carbon neutral.
Yeah, and look, this is obviously very much on brand for them, and obviously a hot topic. There's lots of research around now that says if you want to appeal to the next generation, no matter what product you or service you are providing, you've got to walk the talk in terms of environmental sustainability. And so this is a great move by Aurora. Look, I think that it just sort of shows that if you're committed to this sort of thing, you've got to work on it and you've got to create a program, but it is possible to. So even a cruise ship, which has lots of carbon emissions, you can still make it carbon neutral by offsetting them and doing things sensibly. So yeah, it's a big thing.
I think there's been a great push by the industry as a whole in terms of sustainability and those sort of things.
Absolutely, but I think also a lot of it in the early days was just, we're getting rid of plastic straws, which I don't want to downplay that. We're getting rid of single-use plastics on board. Even that is not an easy thing to do in an operation where you imagine you're feeding thousands of people. You just need lots of cling wrap and all that sort of thing. You've got to get rid of all of that. But this is certainly taking it to the next level in terms of verifying, setting targets, and actually making sure that that carbon neutrality is right across the whole operations.
And I know a lot of the new builds that cruise lines are doing, there's a lot of concentration on driving efficiencies in engine sort of emissions and things like that as well.
It makes absolute sense because it's not just that. If you can make your engine more efficient, you pay less for your fuel as well. Although that's it's also there's a bit of argument around it. I know that Viking founder Torsten Hagen, there's all this fuss about LNG ships, and he says he'll never do LNG because in his opinion, he's researched and he thinks they're worse for the environment than light fuel oil ones, and he reckons hydrogen is once we can get hydrogen engines technology embedded, big enough. Look, it's a big thing to drive a ship. You don't just whack in a bunch of batteries and we've got an electric ship. It's not that simple. But yes, definitely a major push right across the industry to improve sustainability.
I think we've pretty much covered everything we're going to talk about.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think the big thing, I guess, coming out at the moment is just the talk around restarting here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just what's happening at government level with that.
Good thing to wrap it up. And well, this morning we've had Scott Morrison confirming, which everyone knew anyway, that the 1st of November would happen in terms of lifting the biosecurity order. Now, what hasn't been clarified is what does that mean for cruise? Because as we've talked about before, that's the same legislation. The Biosecurity Emergency Declaration is what governs the ban on foreign flagged cruise ships. And so if that is a lifting of the whole thing, well, maybe that means 1st of November, foreign flagged cruise ships are allowed to re-enter. And of course, we've got that time lag, but that would be a great thing.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, I think there's a couple of meetings over the next couple of days at that level talking about the December 17 thing at the moment. And the interesting thing in talking with Joel Katz from Clare is that from his point of view, he's been chasing in terms of governments and things like that. He said it's now starting to turn where he's actually getting calls from them asking questions of Clare.
Okay, that's interesting.
To my mind, that there seems to be a change in mindset at government level to actually now start looking at this stuff. And
well, look, the bottom line is that they have to decide if they're going to continue the ban, because if they modify that biosecurity order, if they lift it, then the ban is automatically lifted. And they've already said they're going to lift that biosecurity order when it comes to outbound international travel by Australians. So if they just lift the whole thing, then away we go. And it is interesting, if they aren't going to, then they need to put other stuff in place. And they have, in the last couple of days, put some changes which force covering charter flights, because there is a loophole. So the lifting of the biosecurity order allows vaccinated Australians to leave and return without quarantine. It doesn't cover unvaccinated people who chartered on private jets, and so they've actually added a new bit of legislation to capture those people, to say that if you're unvaccinated and you're flying in, you must quarantine. You must be sort of part of the hotel quarantine program. So the fact that they're doing those tweaks indicates to me that there is a lot of talk going on, and I bet you some of that's about cruise. But boy, oh boy, we've heard it so many times. Announcement imminent, and Greg Hunt saying,
it just feels different this time, though.
I agree.
It's just got a feeling about it that we're not far away.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed. Let's hope so.
Hopefully, next time we talk, we can actually.
Fantastic.
Hey, we have a plan.
Yeah. So that'll be great.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, thanks for your time once again, Bruce. It's been good to catch up. You've been a hard man to catch the last couple of weeks, but
well, hopefully more regular in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thank you once again.
No worries, my pleasure.